In the heart of Boston's glittering Symphony Hall, 15-year-old Maya Johnson, a blind black girl with a quiet strength, steps into the spotlight, her white cane tapping softly. She's here to play a Steinway piano, a dream she's chased through years of hardship. But before her fingers touch the keys, William Carter, a legendary pianist, sneers. "A blind kid like her will ruin it." The crowd's silence stings worse than his words, and Maya's heart races. Will she crumble under the weight of their judgment, or will she play a melody that forces the world to listen? As the lights flicker, threatening to plunge her into darkness, one question burns. Can a girl dismissed by all prove she belongs? Stick with us to uncover Maya's incredible journey, and hit that subscribe button for more stories that'll leave you inspired. The chandeliers of Symphony Hall at 301 Massachusetts Avenue in Boston glittered like 1,000 tiny stars, casting a golden glow over the polished mahogany floors. On this crisp May evening in 2025, the National Harmony Gala rehearsal drew a crowd of Boston's elite sponsors in tailored tuxedos, critics in silk gowns, and musicians clutching programs with gilded edges. The air buzzed with anticipation, the kind that only a world-class venue could summon. But for 15-year-old Maya Johnson, standing backstage, the grandeur felt like a weight pressing against her chest. Her simple black dress, bought secondhand from a Hartford thrift store, clung to her slender frame, a stark contrast to the opulence around her. In her left hand, her white cane tapped softly, grounding her in a world she could only hear. Maya was an unknown, invited through a diversity initiative to play the Steinway Sons D274 piano, a 175, zero treasure reserved for the gala's brightest stars. She'd practiced for months in her foster mother Laura Bennett's cramped Hartford apartment, her fingers dancing over a battered keyboard as Laura hummed gospel hymns from their church. "You got this, baby," Laura had whispered that morning, her voice thick with pride. Now, as Maya stepped onto the stage, the spotlight burned against her skin and the audience's murmurs fell silent. Her cloudy eyes couldn't see their faces, but she felt their stare curious, skeptical, dismissive. From the wings, William "Bill" Carter, the gala's 60-year-old headliner, watched with a scowl. His silver hair gleamed under the stage lights, his tailored suit a testament to decades of acclaim. Carter was a legend, his performances at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center the stuff of classical music lore. But his heart was as cold as the ivory keys he mastered. "Who let her up there?" he muttered to James. Jim Thompson, the gala's organizer, a wiry man in his 50s with a nervous smile. Jim shifted uncomfortably, clutching his clipboard. "She's part of the initiative, Bill. The board insisted." "A blind black kid on my Steinway?" Carter cut him off, his voice rising sharply. "She'll ruin it." The words sliced through the hall, echoing off the arched ceiling. A few audience members gasped. Others froze, their faces a mix of embarrassment and silent agreement. Maya's cane trembled in her grip, her breath catching. She'd faced taunts before kids at school, neighbors who pitied her, but this was different. This was Symphony Hall, her one shot to prove she belonged. Her heart pounded, each beat a reminder of Laura's words. "Your music is your voice, Maya. Let it sing." In the control booth, Sarah Nguyen, a 30-year-old Asian-American stage technician, clenched her jaw. She'd seen Carter's ego in action before dismissing young performers, demanding perfection, but this was cruel. Her fingers hovered over the lighting controls, her brown eyes narrowing as Carter signaled her to cut the lights. "Get her off," he mouthed, his gesture sharp. Sarah's pulse quickened. She knew the protocol. Lights stayed on unless safety was at risk. But Carter's influence was a shadow over the gala, and defying him could cost her job. Still, something about Myathway, she stood tall despite the trembling can, stirred Sarah's resolve. "No way," she whispered to herself, locking the controls. The lights held steady. Maya took a step forward, her cane tapping the stage's polished wood. The audience's silence was deafening, heavier than Carter's words. She could hear Jim's nervous cough, the rustle of a critic's program, the faint creak of a chair. Her mind flashed to Laura's apartment, to nights spent memorizing gospel chords by ear, her fingers tracing the keys as her mother's old wooden flute lay nearby. "You're stronger than their doubts," Laura had said, her voice warm but firm. Maya straightened, her cloudy eyes lifting toward the unseen crowd. She wouldn't run, not now. "Bill, maybe we should," Jim started, his voice low and anxious, but Carter waved him off. "This isn't a charity show," he snapped, loud enough for the front row to hear. A few sponsors exchanged glances, their lips tight. Sarah, still in the booth, gripped her phone, her thumb hovering over the record button. She didn't know Maya, but she knew injustice when she saw it. Her own parents, immigrants who'd worked double shifts to send her to tech school, had faced sneers like Carter's. If Maya played, Sarah wanted proof. Maya reached the piano, her free hand brushing its smooth surface. The Steinway's cool wood felt like a lifeline, a connection to the music that had carried her through foster homes and lonely nights. She set her cane against the bench, its soft clink swallowed by the hall's vastness. Carter's voice rang in her ears. "She'll ruin it!" But she pushed it down, focusing on the keys. Her fingers hovered, trembling slightly, as she took a deep breath. The audience leaned forward, some out of pity, others curiosity. Jim clutched his clipboard tighter, torn between Carter's demands and the girl's quiet defiance. Sarah's thumb pressed record, the phone's red light blinking in the dim booth. Maya sat, her posture steady despite the storm inside her. The silence stretched, taut as a piano string. She could walk away, spare herself the humiliation of failing in front of Boston's elite. But walking away meant letting Carter win, letting the world keep her invisible. Her lips parted, a soft whisper escaping. "For you, Mama." The words were for her late mother, whose gospel hymns had been Maya's first music. She pressed her fingers to the keys, ready to play, as the hall held its breath. What came next would either break her or remake the world's idea of who she was. The air in Symphony Hall at 301 Massachusetts Avenue, Boston, hung heavy with the echo of William Bill Carter's cruel words. "A blind black kid on my Steinway. She'll ruin it." Maya Johnson, 15, sat at the grand Steinway, Sons D274, her fingers hovering over the keys. The spotlight burned against her skin, amplifying the silence of the audience sponsors, critics, and musicians who'd offered no defense against Carter's venom. Her white cane rested against the bench, its soft clink still ringing in her ears. Her heart pounded, each beat a battle between fear and the fire her foster mother, Laura Bennett, had nurtured. "Your music is your voice." Laura's warm voice echoed in her mind, a gospel hymn from their Hartford church grounding her resolve. In the wings, Carter's silver hair glinted as he leaned toward Jim Thompson, the gala's organizer. "Stop this, Jim," he hissed urgently, his voice low but sharp. "It's unprofessional." "She's making a mockery of the gala." Jim's fingers tightened around his clipboard, his eyes darting between Carter's scowl and Maya's still figure. "Bill, she's already started," he murmured nervously, sensing something in Maya's posture, something unshakable. Carter's jaw clenched, his hand twitching as if to signal the stage crew again. But Sarah Nguyen, the 30-year-old technician in the control booth, had locked the lights on, her phone now recording Maya's every move. Sarah's brown eyes narrowed, her thumb steady on the record button. She'd seen too many dreams crushed by men like Carter, and Maya's quiet courage stirred something fierce in her. Maya's fingers touched the keys, soft as a prayer. The first notea, low, mournful, rang out, cutting through the hall's tension like a blade. It wasn't Chopin or Beethoven, but an original composition, born from the gospel hymns her late mother sang and the classical chords Maya had taught herself on a thrift store keyboard. The melody began slow, each chord heavy with longing, like a child calling for home. The audience, initially rigid with skepticism, leaned forward. A critic in a silk gown clutched her program, her lips parting. A sponsor in the third row, a middle-aged man with a Rolex, blinked rapidly, his throat tightening. Maya's left hand wove a steady rhythm, gospel roots pulsing through, while her right hand danced with classical flourishes, the notes escalating to a defiant crescendo. In the audience, 18-year-old Emma Davis, a violinist prodigy, sat frozen. Her parents, wealthy Bostonians, had pushed her into music since she was 5, their expectations a constant weight. Emma's blonde hair fell over her shoulders, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. She'd heard Carter's insult, felt the crowd's complicity, and expected Maya to falter. But as the melody swelled, Emma's chest ached. Maya's music wasn't polished like the conservatory performances Emma mimicked. Was raw, real, like a heart laid bare. "She's not performing," Emma whispered to herself, awestruck. "She's speaking." Carter's scowl deepened, his arms crossing tightly. "This is a stunt," he muttered to Jim, his voice laced with unease. "She's playing for pity." But even he paused as the melody's crescendo hit, a fierce cascade of notes that seemed to indict the hall's silence. Jim's eyes widened, his clipboard forgotten. "Bill, just listen," he said softly, almost pleading. Carter's lips tightened, but he didn't look away. Maya's music was a mirror, reflecting something he'd buried under years of accolade, soul he'd traded for fame. Sarah's phone captured it all. Maya's slender frame swaying slightly, her cloudy eyes closed not from blindness but from immersion, her fingers moving with a precision that belied her lack of formal training. Sarah's own heart raced, her parents' stories of immigrant struggles echoing in her mind. "Keep going, kid," she whispered, zooming in on Maya's hands. The melody shifted, the gospel chords softening into a delicate bridge, like a lullaby her mother might have sung. Then, with a sudden bold strike, Maya unleashed a final surge defiant jazz-inflected climax that filled the hall with a sound both ancient and new. The last note lingered, fading into a silence so profound it felt alive. No one clapped, no one moved. The critic in the gown wiped a tear, embarrassed. The sponsor with the Rolex exhaled shakily. Emma's hands trembled, her eyes locked on Maya, who sat still, her breathing steady. Carter's arms dropped, his face unreadable, a flicker of doubt in his steel-gray eyes. Jim's mouth opened, but no words came. Sarah stopped recording, her phone hot in her hand. She knew this moment was bigger than Symphony Hall, bigger than Carter's ego. "This is going online," she murmured determinedly, already imagining the YouTube upload. Maya opened her eyes, her cloudy gaze lifting toward the unseen crowd. She didn't smile or bow. She simply slid her cane back into her hand, its tap echoing as she stood. The audience stirred, a few hesitant claps breaking the silence, then more, until a wave of applause swelled, uneven but real. Carter turned away, his footsteps sharp as he retreated to the wings. Jim followed, glancing back at Maya with a mix of awe and guilt. Emma clapped fiercely, her parents' expectations forgotten for the first time in years. As Maya stepped off the stage, her heart still racing, she felt the weight of what she'd done. She hadn't just played, she'd answered Carter's cruelty with a voice no one could silence. But the world beyond Symphony Hall was vast, and her journey was just beginning. Backstage, Sarah slipped her phone into her pocket, her mind racing with possibilities. What would happen when the world heard Maya's melody? 2 years before Maya Johnson's defiant melody silenced Symphony Hall, A beat-up social services van rattled to a stop outside the Hartt School at the University of Hartford, 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut. It was a gray January afternoon in 2023, the air biting with a New England chill. Maya, then 13, stepped out, clutching a faded suitcase and a white cane that had been taped together after countless falls. Her cloudy eyes saw nothing of the school's grand limestone facade or the manicured lawns dusted with snow. But she heard everything: the crunch of tires, the hum of distant heaters, the laughter of students spilling from ivy-covered halls. Orphaned at 5, raised in foster care, Maya had learned to navigate the world through sound, and now through music. The Hartt School was a haven for musical prodigies, its corridors echoing with the legacies of composers and performers. Maya had been admitted through the Harmony Access Program, a state-funded initiative for underprivileged youth. On paper, it was a golden opportunity. In reality, it was a polite exclusion. She wasn't an official student, barred from classes and practice rooms, her presence tolerated but not welcomed. Her foster mother, Laura Bennett, a 45-year-old social worker with tired eyes and a warm smile, squeezed Maya's hand as they parted. "This place is your chance, baby," Laura said earnestly, her voice thick with hope. "Show 'em what you got." Maya nodded, her throat tight, clutching the memory of Laura's gospel hymns sung over dishes in their cramped Hartford apartment. Inside, the school's marble halls smelled of polish and privilege. Students in designer coats rushed past, their laughter sharp, their surnames Whitman, Langford, Parker carrying the weight of wealth and lineage. Maya, in a worn hoodie and scuffed sneakers, felt like a shadow. Her cane tapped hesitantly, mapping the unfamiliar terrain. "Hey, charity case? Lost already?" a voice sneered. Ethan Parker, a 15-year-old pianist and protege of William Bill Carter, leaned against a doorway, his blonde hair swept back, his smirk audible. His friends, a clique of Hartt elites, chuckled. "Did they bus you in for the optics?" Ethan added mockingly, his words cutting deeper than the winter cold. Maya's cheeks burned, but she kept walking, her cane's rhythm steadying her. She found solace outside room 204, where Professor Claire Morgan taught music theory. The door was always shut, but a cracked window let out fragments of sound scales, arpeggios, critiques. Maya sat cross-legged on the cold floor, her fingers tracing invisible keys on her thigh, memorizing every note. She couldn't see the blackboard, but she heard the professor's chalk, the students' pencils, the piano's resonance. At night, in her dorma closet-sized room for non-official students, she replayed the day's sounds, her mind composing melodies no one would hear. Laura's voice echoed, "Your music's in your soul, Maya. Don't let 'em steal it." But stealing came easily at Hartt. Ethan, emboldened by his status as Carter's star pupil, saw Maya as a threat to the school's prestige. One evening, as Maya slipped into an empty practice room, her fingers brushing an upright piano's worn keys, Ethan followed. "This ain't your place," he snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. Before she could respond, he slammed the door, locking it from the outside. "Let's see how long the charity case lasts," he muttered to his friends, their laughter fading down the hall. Maya's heart raced, her hands trembling as she pounded the door. Hours passed, the room growing colder, her cane useless against the locked steel. She sank to the floor, her breath shallow, whispering Laura's hymns to keep panic at bay. Michael Reed, a 50-year-old janitor with salt and pepper hair, found her just before midnight. His keys jangled as he unlocked the door, his deep voice gentle. "You okay, kid?" he asked softly, kneeling beside her. Maya nodded, her voice gone, her cheeks wet with tears she hadn't noticed. Michael's eyes, kind but weary, took in her crumpled form. He'd seen kids like her before, outsiders the school chewed up and spat out. "You don't belong in here," he said warmly, helping her up. "You belong out there, playing for the world." He didn't report Ethan, knowing it'd only make things worse, but his quiet kindness planted a seed of hope in Maya. Back at Laura's apartment that weekend, Maya sat at their thrift store keyboard, her fingers hesitant. Laura, exhausted from a double shift, noticed the change. "What's wrong, baby?" she asked gently, setting down a mug of cocoa. Maya's lips quivered. "They don't want me there, Mama," she whispered brokenly. "They call me Charity Case." Laura's face hardened, but her touch was soft as she pulled Maya close. "You ain't nobody's charity," she said fiercely. "You're Maya Johnson, and your music's gonna shake those walls down." They sang Amazing Grace, Laura's alto blending with Maya's soft hum, the notes filling the tiny living room with warmth. Maya returned to Hartt, her resolve hardened. She kept to the shadows, listening through cracked windows, learning in silence. Ethan's taunts continued, but she didn't flinch. Michael watched from a distance, his mop pausing when he saw her tracing melodies in the air. He didn't know her story, but he knew resilience when he saw it. Maya's isolation was a crucible, forging her talent in darkness. 2 years later, her Symphony Hall performance would prove it, but back then, she was just a girl, dreaming against the odds, her music a quiet rebellion waiting to be heard. The Hartt School's basement, at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, smelled of mildew and forgotten sheet music, a stark contrast to the polished marble halls above. It was late spring, 2023, months after Maya Johnson, then 13, had endured being locked in a practice room by her peer, Ethan Parker. The memory of that cold, trapped night lingered, but so did the kindness of Michael Reed, the janitor who'd freed her. Maya, a blind black girl in the Harmony Access program, had learned to move quietly through the Hartt School's elitist world, her white cane tapping like a metronome. She'd taught herself music by ear, memorizing snippets from classroom windows, but tonight, she'd snuck into the basement's storage room, drawn to an old upright piano buried under dust and neglect. Maya's fingers brushed the piano's chipped keys. Her cloudy eyes closed as she played a soft, improvised melody gospel chords from her foster mother Laura Bennett's hymns, woven with classical flourishes she'd overheard. The notes were hesitant, a whisper of her soul, but they carried a raw beauty that stopped Professor Robert Bob Harris in his tracks. Bob, a 65-year-old retired black jazz pianist, had returned to Hartt to teach a weekly seminar, his silver hair and weathered hands a testament to a career sidelined by racism in the 1970s. He'd been locking up when he heard the music, faint but piercing, drifting from the basement. "Who's down there?" he called gruffly, descending the creaky stairs, his Kenya necessity since a knee injury tapping in rhythm. Maya froze, her hands lifting from the keys, her heart racing. "I'm sorry, sir," she stammered nervously, gripping her cane. "I didn't mean to." Bob raised a hand, his deep brown eyes softening as he took in her slight frame, the worn hoodie, the taped cane. "Don't apologize," he said warmly, his voice like a low saxophone note. "Play it again." Maya hesitated, her fingers trembling. She'd faced mockery from students like Ethan, dismissal from faculty. But this was different, a command laced with curiosity. She played again, the melody bolder now, a story of loss and hope that made Bob's chest tighten. He saw his late wife, Ella, in the notes, her laughter, her strength, gone too soon to cancer. "That's not just music," Bob said quietly, sitting on a crate beside the piano. "That's a conversation. What's your name, kid?" "Maya Johnson," she replied shyly, her cloudy gaze fixed on the floor. Bob leaned forward, his voice earnest. "Maya, a minor chord ain't just a sound, it's a whispered goodbye. You feel that, don't you?" She nodded, a spark igniting in her chest. For the first time at Hartt, someone saw her not as a charity case, but as a musician. That night marked the start of secret lessons, held after hours in the basement, where the smell of mildew mingled with the promise of something new. Bob taught different lino sheet music, no metronome. He tapped rhythms on Maya's wrist, describing music as stories. "A jazz runs like a city street at midnight," he'd say vividly, guiding her fingers to feel the piano's vibrations. He shared his past playing smoky Harlem clubs, losing gigs to white pianists, finding solace in Ella's love. Maya absorbed it all, her memory uncanny, her improvisations growing bolder. One evening, she played a piece inspired by Bob's story of Ella's last days, a slow, aching melody that broke into a defiant jazz riff. Bob's eyes glistened, his voice thick. "You ain't just playing, Maya," he said huskily. "You're healing." But their sanctuary wasn't safe. Ethan Parker, now 15 and Carter's protege, prowled Hartt's halls, his arrogance fueled by his mentor's praise. Late one night, he overheard the basement's faint music, spotting Bob and Maya through a cracked door. "The charity case is getting private lessons," he muttered scornfully to a friend, his blonde hair catching the hall's dim light. Ethan saw Maya's talent as a threat to his spotlight. He stormed to Dean Claire Morgan's office the next day, his voice dripping with indignation. "Professor Harris is teaching that girl in secret," he reported smugly. "She's not even a real student, it's unauthorized access." Claire, a 55-year-old administrator with sharp eyes and a pragmatic streak, leaned back in her leather chair. She'd overseen the Harmony Access program but viewed Maya as a liability, too much risk for little reward. "I'll handle it," she said coolly, dismissing Ethan. But Claire hesitated. Expelling Maya could spark bad press, especially after recent diversity audits. "Let's keep this quiet," she told her assistant firmly, opting to ignore Ethan's complaint. She didn't confront Bob, but the incident deepened her bias, ensuring Maya's exclusion from official classes. Michael Reed, the janitor, saw it all. Mopping nearby, he overheard Ethan's report, his jaw tightening. He'd freed Maya from that locked room months ago, and now watched her blossom under Bob's guidance. "That girl's got something special," he told his wife later, his voice proud. "And Harris sees it." Their lessons continued, a quiet rebellion against Hartt's elitism. Bob saw Maya as the daughter he'd never had, her talent a mirror of his own stifled dreams. Maya, in turn, found a father figure, her music a bridge to a world that had tried to shut her out. As spring turned to summer, Bob's belief in Maya grew. He began to dream bigger, whispering to her one night, "You're gonna play for the world, Maya." She smiled, her cane tapping softly, unaware that her basement melodies were the seeds of a future that would shake Symphony Hall. But first, she'd face another test and audition that could change everything, or break her spirit entirely. The first light of dawn barely crept through the frost-covered windows of the Hartt School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, on a chilly October morning in 2023. Maya Johnson, now 14, stood outside a small practice room, her white cane tapping nervously against the tiled floor. Her mentor, Professor Robert Bob Harris, had submitted her audition for the Young Artists Showcase, a prestigious event that could open doors to stages like Carnegie Hall. But Dean Claire Morgan, ever pragmatic and biased against Harmony Access students like Maya, had relegated her to a 7:00 a.m. slot in a substandard room, far from the main hall's grandeur. The room's flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the upright piano inside was a relic, its keys sticky and pedals misaligned. Maya's heart raced, her fingers clutching the cane as she whispered, "You got this, Maya," echoing her foster mother Laura Bennett's encouragement. Laura waited in the hallway, her overworked hands folded in prayer. At 45, she carried the weight of double shifts as a social worker, but her love for Maya shone through her tired eyes. "Play like it's just you and me, baby," she'd said warmly at their Hartford apartment the night before, humming amazing grace to calm Maya's nerves. Now, Laura's presence was a lifeline, her soft humming barely audible through the door. Bob stood beside Maya, his silver hair catching the dim light, his cane steady. "This ain't about them," he said firmly, his voice low and rich like a jazz bass line. "It's about you showing the world who you are." Maya nodded, her cloudy eyes fixed on nothing, her mind replaying their basement lessons, Bob's stories, the vibrations of the keys, the music that felt like home. Inside the room, David Lee, a 45-year-old Asian-American judge, adjusted his glasses, his face a mask of professionalism. A former pianist turned educator, David valued talent but knew Claire's orders. Maya was a token, not a contender. His pen hovered over the evaluation form, his thoughts conflicted. "She's just a kid," he told himself, "but Claire wants this quick." The piano, already in poor condition, had been tampered with by Ethan Parker, the 16-year-old protege of William Bill Carter. Late the previous night, Ethan had snuck in, loosening the sustain pedal to throw off Maya's timing. "Let's see the charity case handle this," he'd muttered smugly to a friend, his jealousy fueled by Maya's growing talent under Bob's tutelage. He slipped away, confident she'd falter. Maya entered, her cane tapping the scuffed linoleum, the room's musty air heavy with neglect. She set the cane aside, its clink swallowed by the silence. The piano's keys felt wrong under her fingers, sticky, unresponsive, but she sensed the pedal's fault immediately, her ear attuned to the instrument's flaws. Ethan, she thought, his taunts echoing from months of bullying. But she pushed the thought aside, focusing on Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, a piece Bob had taught her to feel, not just play. "It's a love letter to the night," he'd said vividly, tapping her wrist to mimic its ebb and flow. Maya took a deep breath, her heart steadying, and began. The first notes were soft, delicate, like moonlight on water, each phrase infused with the gospel soul Laura had nurtured. Despite the piano's flaws, Maya adapted, her fingers dancing with precision, her body swaying as if the music were a tide pulling her in. The Nocturne's lyrical melody filled the room, its emotional depth belying the instrument's limitations. David's pen froze, his eyes widening. This isn't just skill, he thought, it's a story. He glanced at the evaluation form, Claire's warning ringing in his ears. Don't overrate her. But Maya's music raw, heartfelt challenged his resolve. He scribbled notes, his hand trembling, torn between fairness and obedience. In the hallway, Michael Reed, the 50-year-old janitor who'd once freed Maya from Ethan's sabotage, paused his morning rounds. He'd seen her grow under Bob's guidance, her basement melodies, a quiet rebellion. Drawn by the music, he slipped into the room's doorway, his phone in hand. "This needs to be heard," he whispered determinedly, hitting record. The video captured Maya's swaying figure, her hands coaxing beauty from a broken piano, her cloudy eyes closed in communion with the music. Michael's heart swelled, his own dreams of being a drummer stifled by years of low-wage work reflected in her fight. The Nocturne reached its climax, a cascade of notes that seemed to defy the room's decay. Maya's left hand compensated for the faulty pedal, her right painting a melody that spoke of loss and hope. As the final note faded, the room fell silent, the fluorescent buzz deafening. David cleared his throat, his voice strained. "Thank you, Miss Johnson," he said formally, avoiding her gaze. He stood, scribbling a final note, his heart heavy with guilt. Claire's orders were clear. Reject her. Maya sat still, her breathing steady, sensing the verdict in his silence. She grabbed her cane, its tap echoing as she exited, Laura rushing to her side. "You were amazing, baby," Laura said fiercely, hugging her tight. David left quickly, his evaluation form crumpled in his pocket. Michael stopped recording, his phone warm in his hand. "This ain't the end," he muttered, already thinking of YouTube, where Maya's music could reach beyond Hartt's walls. Bob placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, his voice proud. "You spoke, Maya. They'll hear you yet." As they walked away, Maya felt the weight of rejection but also a spark of defiance. The audition was rigged, but her music was real and soon the world would know it. The rejection email from the Hartt School landed in Professor Robert Bob Harris's inbox 3 days after Maya Johnson's audition for the Young Artists Showcase in October 2023. "We appreciate your effort. Unfortunately, you are not selected." No explanation, no feedback, just a cold dismissal of the 14-year-old blind black girl who'd poured her soul into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major on a sabotaged piano. Bob folded the printed email and tucked it into his desk, his silver hair catching the dim light of his Hartford apartment. He didn't tell Maya, knowing the weight of another door slammed shut. At their cramped home on Blue Hills Avenue, Maya sat at her thrift store keyboard, her fingers tracing silent melodies, her cloudy eyes hiding the sting of rejection she sensed but didn't voice. Her foster mother, Laura Bennett, watched her, worry etching her tired face. "You okay, baby?" Laura asked softly, her voice warm with concern. Maya nodded, forcing a smile. "Just practicing, Mama," she replied quietly, but her heart ached. Unbeknownst to them, a spark was igniting beyond the Hartt School's walls. Michael Reed, the 50-year-old janitor who'd filmed Maya's audition, had uploaded the video to YouTube that same evening, titling it, "Blind Black Girl Rejected by Hartt Plays Chopin Flawlessly." He'd sat at his kitchen table, his wife brewing coffee, and typed a simple description, "This girl deserves better." Michael, whose own dreams of drumming had been stifled by years of low-wage work, felt a fierce pride in Maya's talent. By midnight, the video had a few dozen views, mostly from local music forums. But by morning, it was spreading like wildfire. Jamal Carter, a 35-year-old Black Hartford blogger and activist, stumbled across it on his X feed. "This is unreal," he muttered excitedly, sharing it with his 10,000 followers. "Hartt rejected this? Justice for Maya." Jamal's post caught the eye of Maria Lopez, a 40-year-old Latina pianist with a spinal injury, known for her YouTube channel where she played with adaptive techniques. Maria watched Maya's performance, tears streaming down her face. "She's not just playing, she's fighting," Maria said reverently to her webcam, posting a reaction video. Her 500 subscribers amplified the clip, and by noon, Maya Johnson was trending on Twitter. The video's raw power, Maya's swaying figure, the faulty piano's creaks, her music transcending the room's decay struck a chord. Comments flooded in, "Hartt's elitism is disgusting." "She's a prodigy." And "Who's Maya Johnson?" Views climbed to 100, 0, then 1 million, within 48 hours. In their apartment, Laura scrolled through her phone, her eyes widening. "Maya, come here," she called urgently, her voice trembling with awe. Maya, now 15, tapped her cane as she joined Laura on the sagging couch. Laura played the video, Michael's shaky footage filling the room with Chopin's notes. Maya's breath caught, her fingers clutching the cane. "That's me," she whispered disbelievingly, her heart racing. Bob, visiting for their weekly lesson, leaned forward, his face breaking into a grin. "You spoke, Maya, and the world's listening," he said proudly, his voice thick. Laura hugged her tight, tears falling. "You're my star, baby," she said fiercely, her gospel-rooted faith shining through. But not everyone celebrated. William Bill Carter, now a consultant for the Global Harmony Gala at Carnegie Hall, saw the viral video on X and scoffed. "It's staged," he posted dismissively, his 60-year-old ego bristling at Maya's rising fame. "No blind kid plays like that without a script." His claim, backed by his reputation, gained traction among his followers, casting doubt on Maya's authenticity. Maria Lopez countered swiftly, uploading a technical analysis. Her phrasing, her dynamics, this is real, Maria declared confidently, debunking Carter's lies. Her video went viral too, pushing Maya's views to 3 million. Jamal organized a rally outside the Hartt School, dozens gathering with signs, "Let Maya play," and "End elitism." The Hartford Courant covered it, headlines screaming, "Local girl's talent ignites outrage against Hartt." At the Hartt School, Dean Claire Morgan paced her office, her sharp eyes scanning the news. "This is a PR nightmare," she muttered tensely to her assistant. She'd rejected Maya under pressure to maintain the school's elite image, but now the world was watching. Claire's pragmatism wavered, her bias exposed. Meanwhile, in New York, Olivia Grant, the 50-year-old director of the Global Harmony Gala, watched Maya's video during a meeting. "She's perfect for our Harmony and Diversity theme," Olivia said decisively, her principled stance unwavering. She drafted an invitation for Maya to open the gala, a slot coveted by stars like Carter. The email arrived at Bob's inbox that evening, its subject line bold, "Carnegie Hall invitation." Bob read it aloud to Maya and Laura, his voice trembling with pride. "You're going to Carnegie, Maya," he said joyfully, his cane tapping the floor. Maya's lips parted, her cloudy eyes lifting. "Carnegie?" she whispered. Stunned, her heart soaring, Laura clutched her hand, tears streaming. "God's got a plan, baby," she said fervently, her faith unshakable. But as the news sank in, Maya felt a flicker of fear. Carnegie meant facing Carter again, on a stage where the stakes were higher than ever. Michael, at home, saw the rally on TV and smiled. "Told you, kid," he murmured, his phone still holding the video that had changed everything. The world had heard Maya, but the battle was far from over. The neon glow of Times Square flickered through the window of a modest hotel room on West 46th Street, just blocks from Carnegie Hall at 881 7th Avenue, New York City. It was May 10, 2025, the eve of the Global Harmony Gala, and 15-year-old Maya Johnson sat on the edge of a creaky bed, her white cane resting against her knee. Her simple black dress, sent by a Hartford church group, hung in the closet, a stark contrast to the gala's expected glamour. The viral video of her Hartt School audition, now at 10 million views, had catapulted her from obscurity to the gala's opening act. But the weight of expectation pressed against her chest. Her mentor, Robert Bob Harris, paced the room, his silver hair catching the dim lamplight, his cane tapping softly. "You're ready, Maya," he said reassuringly, his voice warm like a jazz riff. "This is your stage now." Maya's fingers traced the wooden flute her late mother had left her, its smooth grain, a tether to her gospel roots. "What if I mess up, Bob?" she whispered nervously, her cloudy eyes fixed on nothing. "Carter's gonna be there, waiting for me to fail." The memory of William Bill, Carter's cruel words at Symphony Hall, "A blind black kid on my Steinway," still stung. Bob knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "You didn't let him stop you then," he said firmly. "You won't now. Play like you did in that basement. Let your heart sing." Maya nodded, but fear gnawed at her, the stakes of Carnegie Hall far higher than Hartt's practice room. At Carnegie Hall, the rehearsal buzzed with tension. Bill Carter, now 60 and a gala headliner, strode into the director's office, his tailored suit crisp, his silver hair gleaming. His ego, bruised by Maya's viral fame, burned hotter than ever. "Olivia, this is absurd," he snapped icily, confronting Olivia Grant, the 50-year-old gala director. "I'm not performing after some YouTube sensation. Change the order." Olivia, poised behind her desk, met his gaze unflinchingly. Her principled stance had made her a legend in arts management. "The public wants Maya, Bill," she replied coolly. "Her video's at 10 million views. You're not the draw this time." Carter's jaw tightened, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You're betting on a kid who can't even see the keys? This is Carnegie, not a sob story. Olivia stood, her tone resolute. You can withdraw, but she stays. Carter's sabotage was already in motion. Earlier, he'd slipped $500 to a stage technician, a nervous young man named Tom, to misalign the Steinway's tuning. Just enough to throw her off, Carter had murmured slyly, his eyes glinting. No one'll know, but Sarah Nguyen, the 30-year-old technician who'd recorded Maya's Symphony Hall performance, now worked at Carnegie. During a routine check, she noticed the piano's off-pitch strings. This ain't right, she muttered suspiciously, her tech school training kicking in. She spent an hour retuning, her hands steady, her mind flashing to Maya's courage in Boston. Not on my watch, Sarah said determinedly, ensuring the Steinway was flawless. Back at the hotel, Maya's nerves found an unexpected ally. Emma Davis, an 18-year-old violinist prodigy performing at the gala, knocked on her door. Emma's blonde hair was pulled back, her designer dress a gift from her wealthy Boston parents, whose expectations weighed heavily. She'd seen Maya's Symphony Hall performance and felt a kinship with her authenticity. Hey Maya, I'm Emma, she said shyly, her voice warm. I saw your video, you're incredible. Maya's lips curved into a hesitant smile. Thanks, she replied softly, her cane tapping. I'm kinda freaking out though. Emma sat beside her, her own nerves spilling out. Me too, she admitted nervously. My parents want me to be perfect, but you play like it's real. How do you do that? Maya paused, her fingers brushing the flute. I think about my mama, she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. She taught me music's not about being perfect, it's about feeling. Emma's eyes softened, her own pressures easing. Can I sit with you for a bit? She asked hopefully. Maya nodded, and they talked about stage fright, music, the weight of others' expectations. Emma's laughter, light and genuine, filled the room. A rare moment of connection for Maya, who'd faced so much isolation at Hartt. Bob watched, his heart swelling. You got a friend now, Maya, he said warmly, his cane leaning against the wall. At Carnegie, Carter fumed in the rehearsal hall, his sabotage thwarted but his resolve unbroken. He muttered to a colleague, she'll choke under the lights. But Olivia, overseeing the stage setup, caught Sarah's eye. Piano's good? She asked sharply. Sarah nodded, her voice firm. Perfect now. Olivia's lips twitched, suspecting Carter's hand but saying nothing. The gala's theme, harmony in diversity, demanded Maya's voice, and Olivia would ensure it was heard. As night fell, Maya lay awake, the city's hum filtering through the window. Tomorrow, she'd face Carnegie's stage and Carter's shadow. Her flute rested beside her, a reminder of her mother's love, and Emma's words echoed, You play like it's real. The tension was palpable, but Maya's heart held steady, ready to let her music soar. The red velvet curtains of Carnegie Hall at 881 7th Avenue, New York City, parted under a soft spotlight on the evening of May 11, 2025. Revealing a gleaming Steinway, Sons D274 at center stage. The Global Harmony Gala, themed Harmony in Diversity, drew a glittering crowd, diplomats in tailored suits, artists in flowing gowns, and sponsors clutching programs embossed with gold. Maya Johnson, 15, stepped into the light, her white cane tapping the polished wood, her simple black dress a quiet rebellion against the opulence. Her viral audition video, now at 15 million views, had made her a sensation, but the weight of William Bill Carter's past scorn, a blind black kid on my Steinway, lingered. Her heart pounded, but the memory of her foster mother Laura Bennett's gospel hymns and mentor Bob Harris's words, "Let your heart sing," steadied her. Backstage, Bob watched from the wings, his silver hair catching the dim light, his cane resting against a wall. "You got this, Maya," he whispered proudly, his eyes glistening. Sarah Owen, the 30-year-old technician who'd thwarted Carter's attempt to sabotage the piano, adjusted the sound levels, her hands steady. "This is her moment," Sarah murmured determinedly, her tech school grit fueling her resolve. In the audience, Jamal Carter, the 35-year-old Hartford activist who'd rallied for Maya, sat in the third row, his phone ready to capture her performance. Emma Davis, the 18-year-old violinist who'd bonded with Maya over stage fright, clutched her program, her parents' expectations forgotten. "She's gonna shine," Emma whispered hopefully, her blonde hair tucked behind her ears. Maya reached the piano, her cane set aside with a soft clink. She sat, her fingers brushing the keys, the Steinway's flawless tuning a gift from Sarah's vigilance. The audience hushed, their anticipation electric. William Carter, 60, stood in the wings, his tailored suit crisp, his silver hair a false halo. His sabotage had failed, and Olivia Grant, the gala's principal director, had confronted him hours earlier. "You crossed a line, Bill," she'd said sharply, her voice unyielding. Now, Carter's arms were crossed, his steel-gray eyes narrowed, waiting for Maya to falter. But as she began her original composition, Mother's Lullaby, his certainty wavered. The opening was gospel-inspired, a slow, soulful chord progression echoing Laura's church hymns, each note a prayer for her late mother. Maya's left hand laid a steady rhythm, her right weaving classical runs that shimmered like moonlight. The melody shifted to a jazz-inflected bridge, bold and improvisational, reflecting Bob's Harlem stories. Her body swayed, her cloudy eyes closed, not from blindness but from immersion. The music was a tapestry gospel for her roots, classical for her dreams, jazz for her defiance. A Mexican diplomat in the front row, his pinstriped suit crisp, dabbed his eyes, the gala's diversity theme resonating in Maya's sound. "Es como un abrazo," he whispered reverently, his wife nodding, tears falling. Halfway through, Maya paused, her hands lifting to the wooden flute beside her. She raised it to her lips, the audience holding its breath. The first note was delicate, quivering like a child's hope, then grew into a melody that wove through the hall simple, unadorned, yet piercing. It was her mother's lullaby, the one that had soothed her in foster care, now a gift to the world. The flute's voice was raw, not perfect, but achingly real, each phrase a story of loss and resilience. Emma's hands trembled, her own polished performances paling in comparison. Jamal's phone captured every note, his heart swelling with pride for Hartford's own. Carter's knuckles whitened, gripping the curtain. "She's not playing, she's exposing me," he muttered hoarsely, his voice barely audible. Maya's music stripped away his accolades, revealing the soul he'd traded for fame. He saw his own performance, technically flawless, emotionally hollow, and felt a pang of shame. The audience wept openly, not for Maya's blindness or race, but for the truth in her sound. A Broadway producer in the fifth row, her pearls glinting, clutched her husband's hand, whispering, "She's rewriting music." The lullaby's jazz climax surged, a defiant cry that shook the hall, then softened to a gospel coda, fading into silence. The final note hung, a breath held by thousands. No one clapped immediately, the silence a testament to the music's power. Maya lowered the flute, her breathing steady, her cloudy gaze lifting as if feeling the audience's hearts. Then, a single clap, Jamal's sparked a wave, applause thundering like a storm. The audience stood, not out of duty but need, their ovation a collective apology for the world's silence toward voices like Maya's. Emma clapped fiercely, tears streaming, her parents' expectations irrelevant. Sarah adjusted the sound, her own eyes wet, whispering, "You did it, kid." Carter turned away, his face ashen, unable to meet Olivia's gaze as she approached. "You underestimated her," she said coldly, her words cutting. He nodded, mute, his sabotage exposed and irrelevant. Bob wiped his eyes, his voice choked. "That's my girl," he said huskily, his cane forgotten. The performance, streamed live, hit YouTube that night, amassing 10 million views in 24 hours. Maya Johnson trended globally, headlines proclaiming, "Blind teen redefines Carnegie." But Maya, backstage, held her flute, her thoughts on her mother. She'd played not to win, but to heal. The world had listened, and her journey was far from over. The morning after Maya Johnson's triumphant performance at Carnegie Hall, the humid air of New Orleans wrapped around the Ellis Marsalis Center for Music at 1901 Bartholomew Street, like a warm embrace. It was June 2025, and Maya, still 15, stood in the center's courtyard, her white cane tapping the cracked pavement, her mother's wooden flute tucked into her bag. The viral video of her mother's lullaby had exploded to 20 million views, sparking a frenzy of offers: Blue Note records, talk shows, even a Netflix documentary. But Maya had left New York at 4:00 a.m., slipping away with her mentor, Robert Bob Harris, carrying only a small suitcase and her flute. The world wanted her on a pedestal. She wanted to be here, in a community hub pulsing with jazz and resilience, teaching kids who, like her, had been told they didn't belong. Inside the center, a converted warehouse with peeling paint and vibrant murals, Maya sat at an old upright piano, her fingers guiding Tiana Lewis, a 12-year-old black deaf girl. Tiana's hands rested on the piano's wood, feeling the vibrations of Maya's chords. "Like this," Maya said gently, playing a slow gospel phrase, her voice soft but clear. "You feel the pulse, Tiana?" Tiana nodded, her eyes bright, her fingers tapping the rhythm back. Maya smiled, her cloudy gaze warm. Teaching Tiana to feel music was like rediscovering her own journey, learning through sound, not sight, in the face of a world that doubted her. Bob, now mentoring local youth, watched from a folding chair, his silver hair glinting in the sunlight. "You're a natural, Maya," he said proudly, his cane leaning against the wall, his jazzman's heart swelling. Back in New York, William Bill Carter, the 60-year-old pianist, humbled by Maya's gala performance, wasn't ready to let her fade. Stung by his failed sabotage and Olivia Grant's rebuke, he posted on X, "Maya Johnson's blindness is a PR stunt. No one plays like that." His claim, fueled by lingering prejudice, spread among his followers, casting shadows on Maya's authenticity. But Jamal Carter, the 35-year-old Hartford activist who'd championed Maya's viral rise, fought back. His blog post, "The Truth About Maya," included medical records shared with Maya's consent proving her congenital blindness. "Carter's lies can't dim her light," Jamal wrote fiercely, his post shared thousands of times, shutting down the rumor. By evening, Carter's X account was silent, his credibility battered. At the center, Maya ignored the noise. Letters arrived, daily handwritten notes from a Gulf War veteran in Mobile, a deaf boy in Chicago, a single mom in Baton Rouge. Each shared stories of feeling invisible, inspired by Maya's music. She responded with handwritten scores, crafted on yellowed paper with brown ink, each a unique melody tailored to their pain. For the veteran, she wrote echoes of valor, its steady rhythm evoking resilience. "Music ain't for fame," she told Bob quietly, her voice earnest. "It's for them." Bob nodded, his eyes glistening. "You're doing what I never could," he said huskily, his own career cut short by racism. "You're giving 'em a voice." One afternoon, Maya taught Tiana a new piece, guiding her hands to feel the vibrations of a jazz riff. "It's like a heartbeat," Maya explained patiently, her fingers brushing Tiana's. Tiana's face lit up, her hands mimicking the rhythm on the piano's edge. A young volunteer, Malik, watched, his dreadlocks bouncing as he clapped. "You're changing her world, Maya," he said enthusiastically, his New Orleans drawl thick. The center buzzed with kidsome playing trumpets, others drumming on table sits, community vibe, a stark contrast to the Hartt School's cold halls. Maya felt at home, her gospel roots blending with the city's jazz soul, her cane a quiet companion. Yet the world kept calling. A Blue Note Records executive, a sharp-suited man named Marcus Tate, arrived at the center, clutching a gold-embossed contract. "Maya, you're a star," he said smoothly, his voice polished. "Sign with us, and you'll be global." Maya tilted her head, her fingers tracing her flute. "What's a prelude mean to you?" she asked calmly, her tone curious. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. An introduction, right?" he replied uncertainly. Maya nodded, her voice steady. "Then Carnegie was my prelude. The real story's here, not on your contract." She turned away, leaving Marcus speechless, his offer untouched. William Carter's rumors had fizzled, but his shame lingered. In Boston, he sat alone, replaying Maya's lullaby on his phone, her flute haunting him. "I was wrong," he muttered brokenly, his arrogance crumbling. Jamal's blog had not only debunked his lies but exposed his prejudice, prompting a flood of critical articles. The Hartt School, stung by ongoing backlash, announced the Maya Johnson Initiative, a $2 million grant for disabled artists, a quiet acknowledgement of their past failures. Claire Morgan, the dean, read the press release with a tight jaw, her bias now a public scar. Maya, unaware of these ripples, walked barefoot in the center's courtyard, the humid air carrying the scent of beignets. Bob joined her, his cane tapping. "You could have been famous," he said gently, his voice tinged with wonder. Maya shook her head, her smile serene. "I don't need fame," she replied softly. "I need them to feel seen." Her music, shared through letters and lessons, was building a legacy far beyond Carnegie's stage. But the world wasn't done with her yet. A new honor loomed, one that would test her quiet resolve once more. The autumn sun cast a warm glow over the Ellis Marsalis Center for Music at 1901 Bartholomew Street, New Orleans, in September 2025, where Maya Johnson, now 16, stood in a courtyard, vibrant with children's laughter and trumpet blasts. Her white cane tapped the pavement, her mother's wooden flute tucked in her bag, a quiet reminder of her journey from a humiliated girl at Symphony Hall to a global inspiration. Her Carnegie Hall performance, viewed 25 million times, had reshaped music's narrative, but Maya had chosen New Orleans over fame, teaching kids like Tiana Lewis at the center. Yet her influence rippled far beyond, touching places she'd never seen, like a Chicago community center and a transformed Hartt School. At the Hartt School, 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, the Maya Johnson Wing opened its doors, a $2 million testament to her impact. The wing, funded by an anonymous donor, featured tactile studios with braille scores, vibration floors for the deaf, and no tuition for disabled students. Its courtyard held a white stone inscribed in braille. "Silence is where everything waits to be heard." Bob Harris, now 66, spoke at the inauguration, his silver hair gleaming, his cane steady. "This is for the kids told music ain't for them," he said proudly, his voice thick. "Maya showed us there where music's born." Among the crowd, William Bill Carter, 61 and retired, stood unnoticed, his once arrogant eyes fixed on the stone, Maya's legacy humbling him. In Chicago, at the Southside Community Arts Center, the Harmony Prize ceremony buzzed with anticipation. Maya, invited as the youngest recipient, declined to attend, sending a score titled "Silent Voices." Tiana Lewis, her 12-year-old deaf student, performed it on piano, her hands feeling the vibrations Maya had taught her. The piece, a blend of gospel and jazz, was soft yet piercing, each note a call for the unseen to be heard. Olivia Grant, the 50-year-old gala director who'd championed Maya, presented the award, her voice resonant. Maya Johnson reminds us music is for healing, not conquering, she said reverently, holding the crystal statuette. The audience stood, tears falling, Tiana's performance echoing Maya's Carnegie triumph. Back in New Orleans, Maya sat with Tiana, guiding her through a new rhythm. "Feel the beat, like a heart," Maya said gently, her voice warm. Tiana's fingers tapped the piano, her smile radiant. Bob, mentoring nearby, watched his heart full. "You're building something bigger than Carnegie," he said huskily, his jasmine soul alive in her work. Letters kept arriving, hundreds now, from a Navajo elder in Arizona, a blind girl in Atlanta, a veteran in Seattle. Maya's scores, like echoes of valor, reached them, each a melody of shared resilience. Her foster mother, Laura Bennett, now 46, visited, her tired eyes glowing. "You're my miracle, baby," she said fiercely, hugging Maya, their gospel hymns a silent bond. In Boston, Carter's life had unraveled. His rumors about Maya's blindness, debunked by Jamal Carter's blog, had cost him his reputation. Now living in a modest riverside apartment, he sat at an unpolished piano, a Braille score from Mayazent anonymous before him. He couldn't read it, but he played her Lullaby from memory, his fingers trembling. On a podcast, he spoke, his voice broken. "I was wrong about Maya," he said sincerely, tears falling. "She showed me what music's for." Inspired, he began mentoring a blind student at the Maya Johnson Wing, a 14-year-old named Jamal, teaching him with patience he'd never shown before. "It's not too late," Bob had told him gently at a Hartt seminar, and Carter clung to that hope. Maya's influence spread quietly. In Chicago's Englewood neighborhood, 16-year-old Kayla, a foster kid, played Maya's silent voices at a church, her fingers hesitant but bold. "It's like she wrote it for me," Kayla said shyly to her pastor, her voice cracking. The congregation stood, their applause a prayer for the unseen. Jamal Carter, now a national advocate, shared Kayla's story online, his blog post trending, "Maya's music lives in us." Emma Davis, 19, performed Maya's score at a Boston recital, dedicating it to her friend. "She taught me to play with heart," Emma said tearfully, her parents finally listening. At Hartt, Claire Morgan, 56, faced a new reality. The Maya Johnson Wing had forced open doors she'd once shut, her bias now a public lesson. A student asked, "Will Maya come back for a degree?" Claire pointed to a score taped in the music room, Maya's handwriting clear. "She's already a musician," she said quietly, her voice humbled. Michael Reed, the janitor who'd filmed Maya's audition, smiled at the wing's opening, his wife by his side. "Told you she'd change the world," he said warmly, his pride unwavering. In New Orleans, Maya walked barefoot in the center's courtyard, the humid air carrying jazz from a nearby club. She didn't know of the wing, the prize, or Carter's apology. She only knew Tiana's smile, the letters, the music that made the invisible seen. "I'm not done, Bob," she said softly, her cane tapping, her flute close. "This is just the start." Her legacy was no statue, but a heartbeat in every note, a redemption for those who doubted her, and a promise that music could heal the world.